Your coworker just purchased a house. You know this because they can't stop talking about it. They're showing you photos of their new kitchen during lunch like it's their damn newborn. The granite counters, the open concept layout, the unfinished basement they're planning to convert into a gym eventually. They throw around terms like equity and investment with this annoying confidence that makes you want to chuck your lunch at them. And you smile. You tell them congrats. But inside there's this nagging feeling, that quiet voice wondering, why the hell haven't I done this yet? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is you've been fed a lie so deep in American culture that questioning it feels like blasphemy. The lie is straightforward. Renting is wasting money, and purchasing a home is creating wealth. My name is Dobers, and today we're going to tear that lie apart with actual mathematics. Because once you look at the real numbers, you'll see that for most people in 2026, purchasing a house isn't an investment. It's a trap dressed up as responsible adulting. Let's begin with the expression everybody loves to repeat. Rent is just wasting money. You've heard it from your folks, your relative at Thanksgiving, that dude at the gym who clearly shouldn't be offering financial guidance. The reasoning seems bulletproof. When you rent, you hand over money each month and receive nothing in return. When you own, you're accumulating equity. You're securing your future. Except that framing is so misleading, it should be criminal. Here's what they don't mention. When you own a home, you are also wasting money, tons of it. You're just wasting it in multiple directions, so it's tougher to notice. Let's dissect where your mortgage payment really goes because most folks have zero idea. Say you purchase a $400,000 home with a $350,000 mortgage at 7% interest over 30 years. Your monthly payment runs roughly $2,330. Seems doable, yeah? But here's the section that'll make you queasy. In year one, you're handing over about $2,000 monthly just in interest. Only $330 goes toward the principal, the actual property you supposedly own. That means $24,000 of your yearly housing expense is pure interest. Vanished. Evaporated. Dumped straight into the bank's pocket. But hold on. There's more. Property taxes on a $400,000 home run around $4,000 to $6,000 annually, depending on your location. That's another $400 to $500 monthly you're not recovering. Homeowners insurance? Tack on $150 to $300 per month. Maintenance. The standard guideline is 1% of your property's value each year for repairs, so that's $4,000 yearly, or roughly $333 monthly. And if you dropped less than 20% down, add PMI, another $200 to $300 each month. Let's total it up. Your $2,330 mortgage payment just turned into a $3,500 to $4,000 monthly reality when you include everything you're actually paying. And here's the damn kicker. Out of that $4,000, only around $330 is accumulating equity in year one. The remaining $3,670 wasted on interest, taxes, insurance, and fixes. So when somebody claims renting is wasting money, what they actually mean is renting is transparently wasting money, while owning is wasting money while acting like you're not. The distinction is that when you rent, you know precisely what you're spending. When you own, the system has persuaded you that bleeding $3,670 monthly is somehow better because $330 of it remains. That's under 10% efficiency. If your vehicle only turned 10% of its fuel into movement, you'd call it defective. But when a house does it, we label it the American dream. Now let's discuss opportunity cost because this is where the numbers get absolutely brutal. Let's compare two individuals. Person A rents for $2,000 monthly. Person B purchases and pays $4,000 monthly in complete housing expenses. Person B is dropping $2,000 extra every month. What occurs if person A grabs that additional $2,000 and invests it over 30 years? Assuming a modest 7% yearly return, that $2,000 monthly turns into approximately $2.4 million. Meanwhile, person B's $400,000 property, assuming 3% yearly appreciation, becomes worth around $970,000. But person B still owes the bank. They've spent 30 years of interest payments, adding up to over $480,000. Net outcome. Person B has a paid-off property worth $970,000 after dropping $480,000 in interest, plus $150,000 in maintenance. Person A has $2.4 million in accessible investments. The renter dominated by a landslide, and they didn't need to repair a single damn leaky pipe or swap out a single water heater to pull it off. But here's the vital assumption. Person A actually needs to invest that $2,000 gap. If they're just blowing it on DoorDash and random crap, this calculation crumbles. The house functions as forced savings for person B. It's a savings account you can't raid at 2 a.m. when you're wasted thinking about purchasing a jet ski. That's the actual reason folks accumulate wealth through homeownership, not because houses are magical, but because they enforce discipline. So why does everybody still insist purchasing is superior? Because the people advising you profit when you purchase. Real estate agents earn commission on the sale amount, not your long-term satisfaction. Mortgage brokers collect payment when you sign. The bank earns a fortune on 30 years of interest. Your folks purchased their home in 1987 for $90,000, and it's worth $400,000 now. So they truly believe it was a brilliant investment. They neglect to mention they spent $120,000 in interest and $60,000 in maintenance over those years. Nobody has motivation to share the truth, which is that in most markets in 2026, purchasing only works if you're intending to remain for a decade and you have sufficient income buffer that the hidden expenses won't sink you. But what about folks who actually can manage to purchase? They exist. Let's examine them. Because even they're not protected from the trap. Meet the Johnsons. A dual income pair earning $180,000 yearly. They're firmly upper middle class. They purchased that $400,000 property we've been discussing. On the surface, they're living the dream. In truth, they're drowning. Let me display exactly what their existence resembles month to month, because this is where theory smacks into the brick wall of reality. The Johnsons bring home around $11,000 monthly after taxes, retirement deposits, and health coverage. Sounds comfortable until you begin deducting. The mortgage, property tax, insurance, and maintenance reserve, $3,200. 2 vehicle payments because they both commute, $850. Vehicle insurance for 2 cars in a metro zone, $280. Fuel, because suburban sprawl means everything is a 20-minute drive, $350. Student loans from the degrees they required to secure those positions, $750. Childcare for 1 kid because both must work to manage the house, $1,400. Food for 3 people attempting to eat somewhat healthy, $900. Utilities for a bigger property, electricity, water, gas, internet, mobile phones, $520. We're at $8,250. And we haven't addressed clothing, medical copays, or the psychological requirement to occasionally act like you have a damn life. They've got $2,750 remaining for everything else. Emergency reserve? They're attempting, but the HVAC broke last year and eliminated it. Saving for their kids' college? Not occurring. Taking a vacation that doesn't involve crashing on somebody's sofa? Perhaps every 3rd year if nothing breaks. The Johnsons are earning nearly double the median household income, and they feel broke because they are broke. They've constructed a prison for mortgage payments and persuaded themselves the bars are equity. Here's what nobody shares about equity. It's not actual money until you sell, and you can't sell because you require somewhere to exist. It's Schrodinger's wealth, simultaneously existing and not existing until you're ready to become homeless to reach it. The Johnsons have perhaps $60,000 in equity after 5 years of payments. That sounds impressive until you grasp they spent $80,000 in interest to obtain it. They paid the bank $80,000 to borrow funds so they could earn $60,000. That's a negative return. A damn savings account would have performed better. But let's say something breaks wrong. One of them loses their position. Suddenly, they're lacking $5,000 monthly in income. They have precisely 8 weeks before they begin missing mortgage payments. 8 weeks before the whole structure collapses. The house isn't an asset offering security. It's a liability requiring constant feeding. Skip 3 payments, and the bank doesn't give a shit about your equity. They seize the house, retain everything you paid, and you're tossed on the street with wrecked credit. The renter in this situation? They downsize to a less expensive apartment, tighten the budget, and survive. They've got flexibility. The homeowner has an anchor fastened to their leg while the vessel is sinking, and this is the section where somebody in the comments will claim, but my house doubled in value in 10 years. Great, so did rent. So did stocks. So did basically every asset class because we printed money and generated inflation. Your house didn't outperform. It matched the market while requiring you to fix the roof. And that doubling in value, you can't spend it. You can extract a home equity line of credit, which is just another term for returning to debt using your house as collateral. You haven't succeeded. You've just discovered a new method to owe money. The real question nobody wants to pose is this. If purchasing a house is such a clearly superior financial choice, Why do banks need to provide you 30-year loans to enable it? If it was genuinely affordable, you'd pay cash or clear it in 5 years. The reality that the standard mortgage is 3 decades long is evidence that houses are not priced at levels normal humans can actually manage. We've normalized generational debt. Your grandparents might have had a 15-year mortgage. You're signing up for 30 years, and your kids will likely require 40-year mortgages or endless renting. The system isn't broken, it's functioning precisely as intended, it's a wealth extraction machine, and you're the resource. So what's the actual answer for the 80% of folks who can't comfortably manage a $400,000 house? Stop attempting. Seriously, reject the premise. You're not failing by renting. You're refusing to participate in a rigged contest. Let me share what winning actually resembles in 2026. Winning is renting a spot you can manage for 25% of your take-home income instead of 40%. Winning is having $20,000 in the bank instead of $20,000 in equity you can't reach. Winning is sleeping through the night instead of lying awake figuring whether you can manage new tires this month or next. Rent the apartment. Invest the gap between what you'd spend in total housing expenses and what you actually spend in rent. Construct a portfolio of index funds that you can reach in an emergency without pleading a bank for authorization. Generate actual financial security instead of the illusion of it. And when somebody tells you you're wasting money on rent, ask them how much they spent in interest last year. Ask them how much they dropped on maintenance. Ask them if they figured their actual return versus if they'd invested that down payment in 2020. Watch them get uncomfortable because nobody actually calculates those numbers. They just repeat what they were told. The mathematics is screaming the answer. Most folks just don't want to hear it because it opposes the story we've been sold since childhood. But you're smarter than that. You're doing the actual math instead of following the script. And that's how you succeed. Not by purchasing the house that bankrupts you, but by constructing wealth quietly while everybody else is house poor and acting like they're not. Here's the math that'll actually liberate you. You grab that $50,000 you didn't dump into a down payment, you invest it in a boring S&P 500 index fund. Historically, that returns roughly 10% yearly. In 30 years, without adding another dollar, that $50,000 could expand to around $872,000. But you're not just sitting on that initial investment. Remember, you're also banking the gap between what homeowners spend in total housing expenses versus what you spend in rent. Let's be modest. Say you're saving $500 monthly by renting instead of owning. When you account for maintenance, insurance, property taxes, and PMI, that's $6,000 yearly. You invest that too. After 30 years, that stream of investments transforms into an additional $1.1 million. Your total, nearly $2 million. Meanwhile, your friend who purchased the $500,000 house, their house might be worth $1.2 million after 30 years of appreciation. Sounds solid until you realize they spent $595,000 in interest alone on their mortgage. They dropped $150,000 on maintenance. They paid $180,000 in property taxes. Their actual profit after selling, maybe $275,000 if they're fortunate. You have $2 million in liquid assets. They have $275,000 trapped in a house they need to sell to access. You succeeded by a factor of 7. But nobody discusses this because the real estate industrial complex would collapse if folks did the honest mathematics. The psychological grip of home ownership runs deeper than money, though. We've been programmed since childhood. Every sitcom displays a family in a house. Every film about success features somebody purchasing their dream home. The message is clear. Adults own homes, kids rent apartments. This narrative is so embedded that rejecting it feels like rejecting adulthood itself. Your folks will worry about you. Your friends will subtly suggest you're not doing as well as them. Society will treat you like you're stuck in some transitional phase, even when you're 40. But here's what they're not seeing. You have options. When your job provides you a position in another city, you can accept it. You give 30 days notice and leave. The homeowner, they're anchored. They need to sell in a down market or become an accidental landlord. When the neighborhood begins declining, you can relocate. The homeowner is stuck watching their investment deteriorate. When you lose your position, you can downsize to a less expensive spot immediately. The homeowner must keep making that $4,000 payment or lose everything. Liquidity is freedom. Equity is prison with superior PR. The final piece folks miss is opportunity cost. That $500,000 house doesn't just cost $500,000. It costs every single thing you couldn't do because you purchased the house. It's the business you couldn't launch because your capital was locked in your foundation. It's the career risk you couldn't accept because you had to make the mortgage. It's the year abroad you couldn't spend because you were tethered to property. When you rent, your money stays flexible. You can deploy it toward opportunities as they emerge. The homeowner's money is fossilized. It's concrete, drywall, and lumber. It doesn't respond to market conditions. It doesn't pivot. It just sits there, requiring more money for upkeep. Some of you are still resistant. You're thinking about your uncle who purchased in 1995 and earned a fortune. Sure, folks who purchased houses when they cost 2 times annual income instead of 6 times did fine, but that world doesn't exist anymore. You're not your uncle. You're playing a different contest with different regulations. And acting like the old playbook still functions is how you wind up drowning. The real flex in 2026 isn't owning property, it's having options. Walk into any room of successful homeowners and observe how they speak. They boast about their equity and their square footage, but listen closer. They're griping about the special assessment. They're stressed about the HVAC. They're worried about the market. They're not free, they're just heavily leveraged. You, the renter with $200,000 in index funds, you're sleeping fine. You're not worried about hail damage or foundation cracks. You're not comparing contractor estimates. You're compounding wealth while they're compounding anxiety. This isn't about abandoning homeownership forever. Maybe in 10 years the market corrects. Maybe your income triples. Maybe you relocate somewhere housing is actually affordable. But right now, today, forcing yourself into a $500,000 mortgage you can't manage isn't constructing wealth. It's constructing a very expensive trap decorated to resemble success. Calculate your real numbers. Figure what you'd actually spend in total housing expenses. Compare that to your rent plus investing the gap. Be honest about your income stability and your actual expenses. And if the mathematics says renting succeeds, then rent. Not because you failed, but because you refuse to fail by following advice intended for somebody else's economy. Wealth isn't about what you own, it's about what you keep, what you control, and whether you can breathe without checking your account first. So here's your actual homework, and it's simpler than you think. Open a spreadsheet tonight. Column A, what you currently spend in rent, plus what you could invest with the gap if you didn't purchase. Column B, the real total monthly expense of owning that house you've been eyeing. Not just the mortgage, but everything we discussed. Calculate it forward 10 years, then 20. Watch which number is bigger. That's not opinion. That's just arithmetic being honest with you when everybody else won't be. You're going to feel pressure. Your mom will ask when you're purchasing. Your coworker will keep displaying their Ring doorbell footage like it's damn cinema. Let them. You're not playing their contest anymore. You're playing the one where you actually succeed, which means having money that moves when you require it to move instead of money that sits in walls, requiring more money to keep existing. The housing market will keep acting like prices make sense. Real estate agents will keep claiming it's always a good time to purchase. Banks will keep approving mortgages that shouldn't exist. But you're different now. You've seen the mathematics they don't want you to see. You know the actual cost of that American dream they're selling. And you know it costs way more than they're advertising. Rent the spot that doesn't make you anxious. Construct the portfolio that actually compounds. Sleep without wondering if you can manage the roof when it fails. That's not giving up. That's succeeding at a contest most folks don't even realize they're losing until they're 50 and still making payments on a house that owns them more than they own it. Real wealth is being able to decline things that resemble opportunities but calculate out as traps. You just learned how to decline. Now go use it.